can be only one podcast and maybe the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt.
And I'm Wes.
Hey, we're going to talk about Controversy Creates Cash. Eric Bischoff's book.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
And maybe the rise and fall of WCW this time. All right, I got us off topic, but I felt that it was a good. We both felt it was a good conversation. It was worth it. I do like the beginning of this. I did like this book. I wanted to hear Eric. I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but I do like it because I think he's more honest than a lot of people. In fact, he starts off by saying autobiographies, most wrestling books are wrestlers trying to get in the last word or twist the truth to make them look better. And I definitely agree with that. With all the wrestling books I've read. Not all of them, but most of them.
For sure.
I think the most honest have been Chris Jericho, who jokes on himself, admits that it wasn't the best wrestler at times,
sure.
Admits when it was his fault. You know, Mick Foley's too, admits when he makes goofs, mistakes, errors, or says there was fault on both sides. But I do agree with those words that Eric Bischoff said at the beginning, because he didn't want to write a book. Because that's how he sees all wrestling books. And he's never read anyone's wrestling book. Mick Foley apologized to him. He said, hey, look, I'm really sorry about what I said about you in the book. He went, haven't read it. Don't care. So it's nice that Bischoff, you call him names, throw him whatever. He didn't care. He's the guy who had Vince, hanging by a fingernail for 83 weeks. His big thing, which you can't forget.
Well, I think Bischoff is just a businessman.
That's exactly what he is.
He's not a wrestling carny businessman. He's a businessman.
Yeah.
He's maybe a carny businessman, but he's not a wrestling carny businessman.
That's exactly right. He talks about how Bill Watts got this is some fair stuff. He talks about how Bill Watts got let go and fired from the WCW. He talks about how he saw it, but then here's Bill Watts' version. So you guys decide what happened for yourself. I said, well, that's fair. Eric says I didn't write down the details of it, but just giving the other guy's point of view was nice.
I think Bill Watts he got to WCW about 4 years too late to save that product. At that time, the business had it was such a political monster, and Bill Watts owned his own territory, and he's very much a if you're a privately owned business and you want to close, you'll close your business. But if you work for a company that has hundreds of stores, you can't just do that. So Watts ran things differently, and he tried to run things like it was 1981 when it was 1993, and he just couldn't do it that way anymore.
And he also talks about Eric Bischoff started off in AWA, right?
Correct.
And he talks about how I forgot the guy's name. I don't think I wrote it down here. But how the guy who ran that was just so caught up in the old way of doing things.
Vern Gagne,
yeah. And having all the big names, the big draws, but these big draws were in their 50s. No younger talent was ever given a push, unless it was someone's son. But they were so not over with the crowd, but they were kind of forced.
Greg.
Yeah, they were forced to be. They wanted you to love them, but they didn't. And none of the young guys got a shot. And I'm thinking, well, that was what was wrong with WCW, pal. You let the old horses take control. You said these were the big names. They're the ones that draw. That's why. And he defends his. It's weird because later on, talking about, well, why didn't you give everyone a shot? He said, well, I'm going to tell you something. Billy Kidman just don't draw crowds. So talking about all these mid-cars, Chris Jericho wasn't drawing the big crowd. Yeah, he can. And he admits he was wrong on a few of those people, but he says, but you got to understand, you got to go with the big names. You got to go with the big. Well, that's exactly what you said was wrong with your boss. He just kept with the big old dinosaurs and never gave anyone from the bottom a shot up.
I'm not going to argue that entirely, but I do see Bischoff's point in a lot of that.
Okay, well then don't talk about.
Well,
Greg Gagne does the same thing.
I think Vern
Gagne, yeah.
All of the big stars had left that he had, and the stars he had left.
Oh, were the old ones? Okay, that's
well.
what
I'm just
he's saying.
Like he had Slaughter when Slaughter was wrestling with G.I. Joe on his tights. Which I'm not saying Slaughter wasn't a big star, but Slaughter was a bigger star on a cartoon.
That's
really.
True.
So I just think it's
a better
more
known name.
Yeah.
Credits Ric Flair with bringing Hogan over to the WCW. I did not know that.
Yep.
But Ric Flair was very instrumental. Hogan wouldn't sign unless he was given creative control, and he knows that pissed off a lot of the wrestlers. But he says he defends it said they needed Hogan. Hogan was the key to building WCW. All of this I agree to.
I agree with 100%.
But giving him, but he said, so what if I say creative control? He said, you can't tell me Shawn Michaels didn't get his way or champions in the past didn't get his way. That's a good point, but they didn't have creative control. I still wouldn't have given him creative control. You would have listened to him and
either do what he wanted
accept
or
his
you weren't gonna
input.
get him.
But I understand why they gave him that, because they were desperate to do something to bring some attention to their product.
He felt like it was WCW's last stand before the whole thing was going to shut down.
I also think that's true too.
I do too.
So I also think, yes, you need a Hogan to kickstart your or to give some life back into this
Dying product.
Yeah, that was going nowhere. Also, he said it also prevented Hogan from going back to Vince, because Vince would never give creative control.
Correct.
So that way he knew that he had Hogan, and Hogan would never go back to Vince if they got big, because he was not going to get creative control over in the WWF, which is also true. So for that reason, I understand it, but it's also what happened also helped out their demise. I don't think giving Hogan creative control was smart in the long run. I agree with, I see the point of why they gave him to it at the beginning.
Well, what he could have done with Hogan is Hogan was on a contract where he was going to make a certain amount of money. Let Hogan make the money and let him stay home.
Yeah.
And just pay him to be off TV, or pay him to just do, personal appearances at house shows and come in and, if they say, if you advertise in Lafayette, Louisiana at a house show, special appearance by Hulk Hogan tonight, people have never seen Hogan in
Lafayette
flesh would go, well, God, I want to go now. I mean, I want to see Hogan.
Yeah.
Hogan doesn't have to wrestle. He can just come out there and cut a promo on somebody.
Or do his 1.5 minute match, leg drop, go.
3 punches, big boot, leg drop.
Let me listen to the crowd.
Crack a few Miller Lights, get on the road.
Yeah, he could have done that too.
I'm just saying, I think
there's different ways to handle him, is what you're saying.
Right. But I think he did what he had to do. I think anybody that's any kind of long-term business would see that.
He talks about, what I think is a brilliant move, to get Lex to come to the first Nitro and keeping it a secret the whole time.
Perfect.
Keeping it off the books, having Lex book himself in a hotel, picking him up, no one knowing who was in the limo. Not even the wrestlers knew until he came out, and that was a big deal. Some of the wrestlers didn't even know what was going on when Lex showed up. That was a huge move, and he's right. He needed that for Nitro, the very first one, to give it that's the water cooler talk. That's the water cooler talk. And you're like, oh my gosh. And he's exactly right. It's like, what's going to happen next week?
Correct.
Lex Luger was on there.
Right.
So it was a smart move, a brilliant move. He admits that he could have handled Steve Austin better, and that Steve Austin's complaints about him are all true. He said, I could have done it better. He said, but at the same time, let me just tell you, when I called to speak to him one time, he said, tell that son of a bitch I ain't here,
And Tony Schiavone confirms that story.
Oh, yeah? So, yeah. He said, so to be fair, he didn't want to talk to me.
Well, and if you look at this in the context of, yes, he could have handled Austin differently. And this was 94, 95. I think at 95 when all this went down. Let's fast forward 6 to 7 years after his big giant run with Vince. What happened? Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Austin is just Austin. He's going to, when he's not happy,
he's going to be. Yeah, but that was Eric Bischoff's defense. Like, hey, he didn't want to talk to me, so that's why I had to fire him the way I did. He said, but over it all, I should have done differently. He did. He gets called the patsy over Brian Pillman's brilliant joke to get him out of his contract. But he said, to be honest, does anyone really know what Brian Pillman was going to do? He said, who says that he wouldn't have quit Vince and come back to the WCW when it was all said and done?
True.
So he said, everyone wants to laugh at me for being the fool in all this. He said, but to be honest, who knew his plan? No one. And he could have done anything.
Well, part
of
it is you're just getting eyes and chatter about the product. it's
Right.
like everything in wrestling. If one company is doing great and the rest aren't, then the business is not doing good. But if all the companies are doing good, the business is doing great. So
True.
there's nothing wrong with. I mean, it's you can only have so many guys featured. So if you say, well, I can do this with Pillman and lose him, but still get something out of the deal, then do the deal.
Yeah. He was responsible for the cruiserweight division, which was a hit, and I agree. Even when the big wars were going on and Raw was pulling away, the one thing I always said that was better was the cruiserweight division. I said, I will watch a cruiserweight championship.
And now wrestling is cruiserweight.
Yeah, it's funny. But I love the fast action, the big high fly, the moves. I thought that was great. They didn't. The WWF back in the day did nothing for the light heavyweight title back then.
Never.
It was a joke. They didn't really care about it.
They were the last one to that party.
Yeah, and WCW just pioneered that high flying action. I mean, just really capitalized on it.
They put it on TV.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, it was
Featured
good.
it.
I didn't know that Sting had agreed to be the third man for NWO if he was afraid Hogan was going to back out.
There's a lot of. Sting even says he doesn't remember that. So
Oh, okay. So that was just Eric Bischoff saying something.
Well,
he said he was afraid that Hogan was going to say, "Ooh, wait, I'll stop. I won't sell shirts anymore because I'll be a villain." So,
yeah, I mean, I
Sting
think a
on
lot
standby.
of these stories, with the benefit of hindsight, Hogan knew what was happening. Hogan was smart. Hogan did call him and say, "Let me be the third man," but Bischoff had already pitched Hogan to turn a year before that,
and he said no.
And Hogan's, said no.
Yeah, politely walked him out the door. He said, "I got to pick up my kids."
Right. So I think there's some truth to all that, but Hogan is smart.
Yeah,
and
no.
he knew what was.
This is a big thing.
Yeah, something was.
Yeah,
the business was going to catch fire one more time.
Yeah, he knew this was. They were catching on. They were making a difference, and he wanted to be on it. So that was a smart move to move over. He joined the NWO. He said that was a smart move because he said wasn't looking for the limelight, but he wanted to make sure everyone got presented in the best way possible. I disagree with that. I think he definitely wanted to be the center of attention on TV. The NWO was hot, and he wanted to be a part of it too.
Well, I think that I can see your point in that, but I do agree with Bischoff saying that it's just another layer to it. But I think when you already have kind of got this storyline going with DiBiase,
I was going to say
you bring it, you should never have done the DiBiase storyline, or you should have brought Bischoff in later and did something with the DiBiase storyline to pay it off, because they completely crapped the bed on that storyline.
Now, from Ted DiBiase's point of view, he couldn't wrestle at that point, but
Correct.
he was very popular, and he's got great mic skills as a villain. And, JR talked about one of the top 5 people to start a company with would be the $1 Million Man. No doubt about it, because he could just work, get the best heat.
Well, I think what they should have done with that, and this is my idea, is when Bischoff took over, is just make DiBiase, put him in the seat that Bischoff was in on commentary, and make him the NWO announcer.
That'd have been much better.
Then it all you're still playing that storyline out.
Yeah, that'd have been smart
rather than just having somebody else in the ring with all those guys.
Well, that's what Ted DiBiase in his book said, that it didn't make any sense to him because that was the whole purpose of him being on the team. And then he said, I was the guy that would hold onto the belt sometimes and just laugh evilly.
Right,
that's all I could do. He said, you know what? He said, Eric, there's no point in me being here. He said, so can I just go home? He said, yeah, go home. We'll find something for you. And then he just sat home and collected paychecks for the rest of his contract.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think that's my point. I think that obviously the business got so hot, no one could have managed expectations in WCW.
Okay.
They just didn't have the infrastructure for it, the same way Crockett never had it.
Yeah, but then leading into the rise and fall of WCW, they talk about, just how much money was wasted. Well, there's a prime example there. You sign a guy, you don't use him, and supposedly there's a lot of those contracts.
Well, I think anybody in this is going to be a long story.
No, let's go. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that I think in business, talent is always important, but talent is not where a lot of your business deals are your business deals. Like WCW didn't go under because they had too many guys on contract. They went under because they were putting out a very bad product.
That's true too.
That was bought by another company.
But all the money they were bleeding could have been less, because it wasn't just wrestlers.
They could have ran a tighter ship. Definitely.
And I'll go into that when we get into the other book. But
if you sign guys to a 3-year deal and it's a ironclad contract, it is what it is. In year 2, if they signed DiBiase to a 3-year deal for $200,000 a year, whatever. Well, in year 1, they've already kind of said, we don't know what to do with the guy. There's nothing they can do other than send him home or find another role.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, Ted DiBiase's role in the company was so low at that point. That's what I'm saying. If they would have transitioned immediately and said, not only am I the leader of the NWO, my good friend here, Mr. DiBiase, is going to take my seat right beside Mr. Schiavone and Mr. Heenan.
Yeah, that would have been great. And it made sense.
He is going to present the NWO in the light that we wish to be presented in.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That would have made sense.
They didn't do it.
And that would have been good because he would have been great commentary-wise.
Correct.
And now we get to the era that I was watching. Talks about having Sting become like Crow Sting, looking from the rafters. That's all he did for like a year. And then finally decides to intervene. The big match is set up at Starrcade 97, Hogan versus Sting. Everyone's been waiting for this. I remember Brandon going nuts over this, that Sting, because he was the new look of Sting fan. He was big into that.
Crow.
And finally when he came down from the rafters and hit, cracked him over with the bat, and the match was finally happening at Starrcade, which is kind of their WrestleMania.
Correct.
It ended up where Hogan just beats him. And Bischoff explains this, well, Hogan didn't want to lose to Sting because he said Sting was out of shape. I went back and watched Starrcade 97. Sting doesn't look like he's out of shape. Is this a true story?
Sting does not look his best by any means.
Okay, so you think he was out of shape?
Well, I think that the storyline had went pretty long.
It did go too long.
He went too long.
Because I remember it was like every week, there he is. Oh, there's Sting! Okay.
I think if they would have wrapped that up at Halloween Havoc instead of doing the Piper match again, it would have been a lot better.
Or would have gotten him more involved prior to Starrcade, like ramp it up a little bit. Now he's kind of getting in the mix of things.
Right, why is Sting
interfering more, getting beat up.
Like I said, with the special appearances at house shows, let Sting work.
Yeah.
And only advertise it in local markets. Hey, Sting is going to have a match with Billy Kidman.
Yeah, all he does is dark matches
to get his ring rust up. I think that Sting had issues that he's came out and talked about, but that's Hogan's playing a card that he allowed him to play, and unfortunately Sting was in a position where he got played. So yeah, they put on it. That was a major. If you're looking at 100% of a pie chart and the downfall of WCW,
that's a big one.
At least
that's the one that's ringing the bell, right? That's
that
the first
is
toll.
At least the first. That's 1/3 of the problem.
There you go. Wow. Says that the reason Bret Hart didn't work out in the WCW wasn't because they didn't use him well. It's because of his attitude. He was never the same after the Montreal Screwjob. Is this true or false? Is it his attitude is the reason he didn't work out in WCW? I'm really asking. I don't know.
No, I think Bret was used to working for Vince and working for Pat and working for Bruce Pritchard and those guys who really had a wrestling business way of doing things, and his dad. And he went to WCW where a lot of the wrestling business was being ran by the wrestlers. And a lot of those guys had a lot of stroke. And number one, he and Hogan did not get along and did not respect each other.
Right.
So that was a lot of the problem.
Okay.
Bret should not have been the referee at that stupid match.
Yeah. The Rise and Fall of WCW talks about that.
They completely destroyed that. If Sting and Hogan is 1/3, Bret is at least the next 15% of that.
When they rolled out Bret Hart, especially at the time that they rolled him out,
He was hotter than donut grease.
And it's almost like they just gave him a flat tire and just had him just go out there and do
exactly. They gave him a flat tire.
They gave him a flat tire.
Perfect.
And didn't get to go anywhere.
Yeah, you can't go anywhere.
It was like, this is what we're doing. A guest referee is what you're going to use him for.
Awful.
You bring him in and he's pissed off and he challenges Hogan right then and there and it's on.
Right.
You know,
why was that? Yeah, that easily could have happened.
And you go for 3 pay-per-views with that as they exchange blows back and forth, and I think you just got to...
I think that could have easily been... I know Sold Out was the next pay-per-view, but you easily could have said, when Hogan came out and said he wanted a rematch with Sting because he was screwed out of the title, and Bret Hart comes out and says, your next match is with me.
Yeah. That'd have been great.
And then you let the Hogan and Sting build again.
Yeah.
They did it too much. Get Bret in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Bret keeps that storyline floating for 3 more months. Then finally Sting can come back. I mean, you can keep working this and have your
work your top guys in to where everybody. That's why WWF had Taker. They had Austin. They had Foley,
people they could rotate through and have.
They had Hunter. They had Angle. Yep. They had these select guys that all rotated and worked together.
Yep.
WCW rarely had a good mix of that.
They had the stable. They could have worked through with what they had, but they just didn't. They mismanaged a lot of their stars. Safe to say. He said DX would have been a 3rd or 4th string NWO.
That's a WWF made book, so that's something that they wanted him to say. I don't believe he feels that way.
Oh, okay. All right.
My opinion.
Tried to give Rick... Oh, okay. The whole firing of Ric Flair. He said Rick, on his view of it is Rick asked for it a few weeks off, but they'd already planned out shows and stuff by then. If he had said something earlier, he would have done it. But Rick acts like they said, no, you can't go. But it's because they said... Bischoff says because they already had obligations. We already had plans for him. That's why he couldn't go. If he'd have told us a few months ahead,
he would have let Hogan do it.
So what? He would have let Hogan do it. That's true.
He would let Scott Hall do it.
Goldberg.
Let Kevin Nash do it. We'll let Goldberg do it.
Yep, I guess so.
End of story.
That was his point of view for the Ric Flair storyline.
People that can be bullies bully the people they can bully, and they don't. And that was Bischoff was not at his best as far as administrator there. He
blames, and I know Russo does too, the executives forced him to, we're hurting his ratings, stuff he could and couldn't do.
I agree with that.
But doesn't speak about mismanagement and how every wrestling book I've ever read, when they go to WCW, they said, we don't know who was in charge. It was a madhouse. There was 3 different people calling 3 different shots.
You have a booking committee.
He doesn't say, Bischoff mentions nothing about this. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, you have a booking committee there, and you did not have that with, like, and Russo said previously, it was just he and Vince McMahon writing TV. Well, that's true. I mean, it was a very small amount of people involved in that process.
Yeah. Talked about and I remember this too, the Halloween Havoc that went over and they missed the big show. He said he didn't know how that happened. Was there no one looking at the time? Was there no one looking at the time and going, hey guys, we're about 10 minutes, 20 minutes over, so y'all need to shorten your match?
Poor infrastructure.
Because any wrestler would have cut I have to wrestle easy? Okay, sure.
Or they just say, we're cutting your match, you're getting paid regardless.
Cutting your match. And
let's do an angle in the back, they get attacked by the NWO, they're not having the match.
Yeah.
We'll pick it up on Nitro.
Yeah, you could have done something else like that, but that was just a poor excuse. And then to give it away for free was only a thing to get the ratings.
I agree.
But he said it was, we felt bad for the fans, so we decided to just give them it for Nitro. He said, and Nitro beat Raw that night
they
too.
They were running out of a clear direction.
But I remember
they were scrambling.
I remember that because we watched it. I don't know if we were at the card shop when we saw that Nitro or whatnot. You and I would work Mondays. Watch Nitro Raw.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. revealing Mick Foley was going to be the champion, that put a lot of butts in the seat. He said, what they don't understand is we used to do that all the time back in the day. Yeah, but this time you were doing it for a different reason. I mean, you're trying to keep viewers on your channel. And sure, it was true he'd done that back in the day, talk about the results of the taped Raw, but he hadn't done it in a while.
Well, if you dig into that, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this have, after Foley wins the belt, they go right back to Nitro. Nitro hits a big number.
Oh, okay.
Because Nitro ran longer because they knew that was on a tape, so they knew they were going to run longer than that match. The problem was, that match was really good. That pop Austin got that night when he hits the ring for the run-in is gigantic. So it's grown. True. And the fact of the awful line they told Shivani to say.
That'll put a lot of butts in seats.
Yeah, it's a lot of different things. Yeah, they had done that before, but they had done that in a different way.
In a classier way.
Right. Well, it had kind of gotten to the point where it was like, it seemed desperate rather than.
Desperate and mean-spirited than rather just joking about.
It was more desperate than mean-spirited.
Desperate, there you go. All right, so he accuses Vince Russo of loving to see himself on TV. Vince Russo is a narcissist who loves it. Well, Bischoff is on TV just as much, if not more. So I don't know if that's the pot calling the kettle black.
Bischoff is a much better TV character than Vince Russo.
That's true, too.
100% better.
He says he was never... There's a big rumor about him. He was more interested in Hollywood than WCW. He said that's untrue. But... when he got re-signed with WCW, when he got brought back, he made sure that they agreed to 3 TV movie spots so that he could work some magic in Hollywood, or going back over to see his Hollywood friends.
Well, I think he knew that he was getting into the last run of that ship, so he was trying to get as many different deals to incentivize him where he would have a soft landing. He knew WCW wasn't going to make it much longer.
Yeah, he was kind of responsible for starting Ready to Rumble, the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a big part of that.
Yeah. And he also got an offer from TNA, but he turned it down because he had a lot of projects going on with in LA, he said at the time. So, plus I don't think he believed that they were going to amount to anything. He doesn't say that, but...
He didn't go there. The only reason he went there is because Hogan wanted his blankets.
Mm-hmm. Man, I do not know what this next note means. Bash at the Beach 2000. Right. So that stuff. He said it was all planned. It was all planned out, and Vince Russo just messed everything up.
Correct.
So that is correct.
Yep.
Okay. I almost don't. I think that's a terrible storyline. I think that's this terrible idea that he was thinking this was going to be brilliant. It was going to be great.
It's just too inside. But because too inside of the business for a casual person to go, what's going on here?
Yeah, casual people don't know. The smart people are, a little like, was it real or is it fake? But at the same time, that was just garbage.
The product was already circling the drain.
That's true too. At that point. And he doubts that there'll be anyone that will do to Vince McMahon what he did.
100%
with WCW. That's true, you think?
Absolutely.
So, real quickly here, AEW, no, never.
Well, I don't think AEW and WCW are the same thing.
Okay, so you only see them as a competitor.
It's no different.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
shooting basketball with your buddies in your 20s and shooting it with your 40s. Vince McMahon's made so much money since WCW's been gone.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. There can be 10 more AEWs, and he doesn't. It's not gonna.
Competition no longer worries him.
Yeah, because he can buy it.
Yeah,
basically,
he's got it. He's got all the money.
So I don't think that doesn't fuel his fire anymore.
So no one will ever have him on the ropes again.
No, I think Mother Nature has him on the ropes right now.
Hey-o!
I'm just saying. I mean, he's an old guy. Vince
is he going to give the reins over to Shane one day?
I think that it's already in the books to have that company sold the day he dies.
Oh, wow. Shane doesn't want it?
I'm
or
pretty
he doesn't
sure.
Want to give it away.
Why would you want it?
Oh, that's true, too. Why
not say, pay my kids for 25 years?
No,
Let
I
me
see.
be done with all this.
I see the point.
There's nowhere for it to go.
How old is Vincent McMahon now?
72, I
Shut
believe.
up. Really?
73.
Wow, it's crazy to think about. Still working.
Still a genetic jackhammer.
I'm
His words, not mine. Easy. I'm not trying to get on the payroll.
Hey-o. All right, well, we'll stop there. We'll go to the rise and fall of WCW next. These were good. There's just a lot of stuff to unpack from all these novels.
Yeah, I think the Bischoff book is way better than the...
I agree. I think it's worth reading. Even though I don't agree with a lot of what he says, I do agree with a good bit. But
Bischoff is a hustler.
Yep. He is what he is. He doesn't make any ifs, ands, or buts about who he is.
Right, correct.
Yeah. So
He married a playmate, so you can't knock him for that. Still with her.
See, he never mentioned that.
Well, sometimes you need to keep little things kayfabe.
All right, folks. We'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.